this is just a reminder that we are recording, so if you're going to say something profane, say it loud enough for the mics to hear.
What the f***?
That's it, Chris. Live from the Brewhouse stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington, this is Wheat Don't Tell Me, the MLB Beer Quiz Show. Forget about the end of days. I'm more worried about the end of days. I'm Dave Basaraba, and here is your host, Chris Sindrick.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody. It's February, and the groundhog didn't see his shadow. So it looks like it's an early start to the spring beer drinking season. It's been a bit since our last show, and it's good to be back in the Brewhouse stage here at Mountain Lakes Brewing with this awesome crew. Saludos, my darlings, and you know who you are. I got to tell you all something, and I don't say this to everybody. You're marvelous. Absolutely marvelous. And we got a great show for you tonight, for you marvelous people. Ales for ALS Project Manager Mike Shannon will be here later in the show to play a game we call Not My Beer. We have a little different format for the show tonight. This evening we are recapping the best of Wheat Don't Tell Me 2019. So it'll be a pretty short show. We'll take a drunken stroll down short-term memory lane and chat about how this crazy show came to be and a few good bits that came from it. And who better to do that with than the brewers from our very first episode. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to our panel of brewers from the Inland Northwest Craft Brewers Association from Bellwether Brewing, a man who will tell you he didn't brew that beer, but he definitely grew it. Please welcome owner and brewer Dave Musser. From the Grain Shed, a man who loves vegetarian zombies because they want to eat his grains. Please welcome owner and brewer Joe Williamson. From Mountain Lakes Brewing Company, a man who turned down the starring role in Groundhog Day and has been reliving that mistake day after day ever since. Spokane's own little Bill Murray, owner and brewer Tim Hilton. And also from Mountain Lakes, a man who loves to farkle everywhere. He'll farkle at home. He'll farkle on vacation. Hell, he'll even farkle in the tap room. Please welcome owner and brewer and your announcer, Dave Basaraba.
I think I farkled right when I got here.
We record our show the first Wednesday of every month, and tonight's show is Season 2, Episode 1 of our Wheat Don't Tell Me podcast. You can find it at mountainlakesbrewco.com/podcast or any of your favorite podcast formats, including Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and many more. Well, as I mentioned, this is the best of 2019 show. We put together some clips from the past show that we think you'll enjoy. Let's begin with how our show came to be. I believe it all started with a beer, a certain wheat beer, to be exact. So tell us a little bit about Dave and Tim. This kind of goes to you. How did we get to where we are right now, kind of starting with that beer?
Well, my favorite podcast is Wait, Don't Tell Me with Peter Sagal on NPR. So those of you that might listen to it. I traveled a lot for my previous career and would listen to that podcast on a weekly basis. And then when we made the American Wheat, we were looking for punny names because I love a good pun or alliteration. And I don't know, we ended up with Wheat Don't Tell Me.
Your wife ended up with Wheat Don't Tell Me.
That's right.
Oh, so what's this?
It's a good thing she's not here. Yeah, she came up with the Wheat Don't Tell Me, I think.
Okay. Always had to take credit for that.
So Amanda came up with the name for the beer.
Yeah.
All right. Which is the wheat ale we're drinking tonight, which is, as we know, $5 for a pint tonight.
$5 a pour on Wheat Wednesdays.
Kind of our steady wheat beer that we have here at Mountain Lakes Brewing, right? Definitely. Yep. And then at the same time, then that the beer came out, what was kind of interesting is I was starting a beer class up at Eastern Washington University, and we were talking about who we would maybe want to partner with to be able to have this craft beer class come to light. And then I was introduced to Tim and Dave through a mutual meeting that we had through the university. And I think that was what you started in April of 2018?
Yep.
And that meeting was sometime in like February, maybe this time of year, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
That we had a meeting and then sat down and talked about the dynamics of creating this craft beer class and maybe hosting part of it here with Mountain Lakes, right?
Yep. Educating craft beer lovers. I think you approached 6 other breweries and they all said no, and we said yes.
It was. We did. We went to a number of breweries, including Bellwether and the Grain Shed. And they were like, that sounds stupid. Good luck with that.
Said that, but it's so full.
Dave and Tim will love it.
No, we're above that.
Grew it, don't tell me, didn't really have
No, Grew It, Don't Tell Me.
appeal.
Grew It. It's like a gardening show. You know what I mean? Something like Grains and Grew It with Dave and Jill. Yeah. So then what was kind of interesting is we got a gig with Mobius. Mobius did this event where they wanted to do this thing called the Science and Love of Brewing or beer. And then we were brought on board to be able to have the happen. Mountain Lakes provided the beer for the show. And then my job was to kind of create a number of different areas that we could do things.
And Tim and I said a brewing event for children at a children's science museum?
Right.
We're in.
We're in.
Get them hooked.
So we had like 88 drunk third graders.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
We did
My
have
daughter
really
was
little
there.
beer cups, though, so it was okay.
Yeah, they were tiny cups.
Sippy cups of beer.
Yeah. And then as part of that, we were thinking about brainstorming these little segments that we would have. And I came up with the idea of having this, since the beer was named Wheat Wheat, hey, why don't we do this kind of spoof on the show, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And then what we'll do is we'll create an actual station called Wheat, Don't Tell Me, where people come up and we give them trivia, kind of like what they do on Wait, right?
Yeah, and honestly, you had brought the idea up to me, and I was like, yeah, that'll be cute, Chris.
Right. It didn't get well received.
It's a cute little idea.
Yeah.
No, but then we read the first script.
Right.
And we were like, oh, we have to do this.
It's good, yeah. And I think it was Amanda who at the end of it was kind of like, you guys should do something with that. Could you actually put on a show or do something?
Most good
with
ideas
that?
I've had have come from
that's
my
right.
wife.
They always come from our wives. Not definitely from us. And so then with that, when I said, hey, let me take some time. I think I could do a show a month. And then I wrote the first script for We Don't Tell Me and showed it to Tim and Dave. And they were drunk enough to say, like, hey, let's give that a try.
Yeah, because it was Sunday morning.
Yeah, and in June, we had our first ever episode. Our first ever episode featured our special guest, Chris Molitor, who was the Spokane's top singer-songwriter for the year.
Yeah, best singer-songwriter of the year.
And then we had some connections through a friend of mine named Dave Cook, and he got Chris Molitor to come on the show. And then we were like, well, who are the two most entertaining, good-looking, and beloved brewers in Spokane?
And so they weren't available.
They weren't available, so we got Joe Williamson and Dave Musser.
Who has nothing else going on.
Yeah.
Dave and Joel.
We don't have a life.
Yeah.
Well, sure to do it.
One was out foraging with grains, and the other was cutting down a tree to throw in his beer. And so then that's how the show came to be. And then interesting fact is that Tim wasn't on the first show. Tim, for some reason, we didn't have you on the first show.
He was standing right here, though.
Rehab.
In spirit, you were there.
Rehab week.
Tim wanted to see that it was going to be good.
Yeah, Tim's honestly the smartest one of us. He's like, I'm not putting my ass in front of the audience to see if this works. But it did work, and then we had our first show, and it went pretty well. One of the first things I do remember is that we had this, like, what are we going to do? When we have contestants that come up, what are we going to have them earn if they win on their segment? And so we talked about what that should be. And so here's a little clip from us discussing and having disputes over what should the actual prize be for somebody who is a guest on the show.
You will win our prize, free beer and a pint glass.
Awesome.
All right.
In a pint glass.
We keep working on this.
It's and.
Oh, it's and? Oh,
I
my bad.
I wrote the damn script, and that's
Okay,
what
okay, all right.
It's right here.
That's it. It qualifies.
I don't know. Yep. Sorry.
So that was the thing where we had discussed whether it should be free beer and a pint glass or free beer in a pint glass? What was it? I still
I
don't
think
know.
you just decided to start giving away our glassware.
So
that
I
night.
thought that's what we decided.
No, you decided.
So that what
And that's fine.
your original perception was, it was just your beer came in a pint glass.
You
but
should
the
be
beer was
happy for
free.
the free beer.
Right. So anyway, we had a number of things. The one thing that I do remember from that show is that we had Dave Musser and Joel on, and I followed pretty much the Wait, Don't Tell Me script. But what I did digress from is the final show, which I decided to call Beer Slanging, where I give the brewers slanging terms. And this is the very first beer slang term given, and it has forever set the tone for beer slanging on this show. All right, are you ready for your first beer slang term? We're starting out light,
Ready.
and we'll see how this goes. Your first term is barrel-aged.
What?
Well, that's pretty simple.
That's
when
pretty
you mess
simple.
up on a beer, you put it in a
Aged
barrel.
In a barrel.
And you're like, we could charge twice as much for this mess up. It's called Business 101.
Okay.
You weren't actually supposed to give him the real answer.
Don't vote for Dave.
You gave me beer before this. Come on.
So that was Dave Musser giving the real answer to beer. Do you remember that, Dave? Was it?
No, I forgot that.
Where does he brew it?
Right. Yeah. Bellwether Brewing is where.
And our barrel madness is coming up this March. We have 12 different barrel age beers we'll be releasing.
In his defense, though, it takes up a lot of space to age a beer, and those
Right.
are expensive barrels they're putting him in.
Right.
So he may have been drunk that night and only half true.
But it did. It set the tone, and it was. I always remember that because it definitely. I was wondering how this was going to turn out, and right from the get-go, I thought, okay, we kind of have something with this thing here. Well, on our second episode, we had our special guest was Kevin Brockbank, who is the Spokane Community College president. Our panel was only made up of Chris Anderson, so we had one brewer guest. And then Dave got a new groove. If you don't know, Dave really wasn't. He was the announcer in the beginning, but didn't have a full announcer role. But what we learned is there was an awful lot of me talking, but there wasn't a lot of other people talking at certain times. And if you've listened to me talk, just talk to my wife, it might be good to have some other people talk every now and then. So Dave got an upgraded role. So clip 5 talks about Dave getting his intros. If you've heard this intro tonight, which is he's not worried about the end of days. He's more worried about the end of Dave's. We kind of spoofed on some of those. So here's some of those intros.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from the Brewhouse stage at Mountain Lakes Brewing Company in downtown Spokane, Washington, this is Wheat, Don't Tell Me, the MLB Monthly Live Beer Quiz. Forget about Flavor Flav, taste a little of the Flavor Dave. While in Spokane, many like to stay at the Davenport. Well, tonight, why not stay at the Davenport? Fall is moving in, but it's still summer, everybody. So tonight, why not backflip into the pool off the Daving board? It's Oktoberfest time, people. And before you know it, it'll be Halloween and time for trick or drinking. So why not grab your favorite pumpkin ale and take a spooky stroll through the local Dave Yard? One of my favorites. Once, when I was skiing up at Mount Spokane, I looked uphill and saw 1,000 Daves tumbling towards me, out of control. Turns out it was a Dave-a-lanche. The night before Christmas in your house may be Christmas Eve, but in my house it's Christmas Dave. I'm Dave Basaraba, and here is your host, Chris Cindric.
So that was the establishment of Dave. If you've ever listened to Wait, Don't Tell Me, Bill always has a punny way of introducing himself on the show. So Dave is waiting for me to run out of writing terms for Dave, which actually isn't that bad a name. You know what I mean?
Oh.
To be able to kind of rhyme with it. I'm just
It
saying.
used to be most popular name on Earth, now it's second.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying it to coincide it with things that you can spur off of.
Yeah,
it's
there's
not
not-
like your name is Alexander.
My middle name is.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, well played.
There you go. Dang, I had a feeling.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, so
I
if we
kinda
run out
knew.
of Daves, we can just run into things
Damn.
that rhyme with Alexander.
So your initials are Dab.
Yeah, little dab will do ya.
No, boom, boom, bam. Never ending. That show, too, our second show, actually established something pretty cool, a tradition that we have carried on every week ever since. And so if you